Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my Excalibur build that I use in both the Steel Path and level cap content. So this is the first time that I've took a proper look at Excalibur ever since I've came back to the game, and he is actually a lot more complicated to build than you think if you want to take him into that higher level content. The first thing that I did is I took a look at all the different builds that other people were running. So I've watched pretty much every single Excalibur build video possible, and a lot of people, they tend to end up using Raffle Advance, and I don't really like Raffle Advance simply because there's other ways for you to get critical chance onto your Exalted Blade, and the duration of this is just really short. You can see that I have basically 27-second duration, and I've got both Narrow Minded and Prime Continuity equipped. The base duration of Raffle is just way too low. You're also going to notice a few other flaws with this build. So for example, where the heck is my survivability? I have basically no survivability on this build, and as you guys know, surviving in Steel Path and level cap content, well, that's pretty difficult. So I just felt like every single time I threw together a different version of a Raffle Events build, I was missing something, be that survivability, duration, or maybe even ability strength to make Furious Javelin feel more powerful. For those of you who don't know, Furious Javelin is a multiplicative melee damage buff, so it's definitely worth slotting into an Excalibur build if you can. You also want to make sure that you're running Chromatic Blade on Excalibur as well, because what this is going to do is going to change Exalted Blade's damage from physical damage types to elemental damage types, meaning more overall damage, and you also get to pick the elemental damage type that you're going to be running based on the color that you're rocking on Excalibur's energy color. You are, of course, limited to the base elements, so that's heat, cold, toxin, and electric. So already on every single Excalibur build, we basically have two mandatory mods, so that doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room to throw other mods on. What you're also going to notice if you play Excalibur for any amount of time is it's kind of difficult to keep him alive no matter how much you invest into defensive mods. And depending on what type of content you're trying to play, that's going to determine what defensive mods you throw on. So say, for example, you only want to play in base Steel Path, then you're going to need something like Adaptation and Vitality. So Adaptation is giving you damage reduction based on the damage types, and then Vitality, that's just bonus health, stuff like that. But if you want to survive in level cap content, basically the only way to do it is through some combination of using, let's say, Rolling Guard, and then shield mods like Fast Deflection for more shield regen, paired with Vigilante Vigor. So that looks like that. Catalyzing shields for a longer shield gate, and that's basically what you have to run to keep yourself alive in the highest level of content in Warframe. Basically, the only form of survivability that Excalibur has baked into his kit is his immunity whenever he does a slash dash. So if you take a look at my health and shields, whenever I do a slash dash, while I'm in that animation, you can see that it goes gray. That basically means that I can take no damage. The thing is, going down as Excalibur actually hurts your damage output because it resets the combo on your Exalted Blade, and we want to build up our combo as much as we possibly can because we're using mods such as Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds to increase our critical chance and status chance. So these 6 mods are mandatory in every single one of my Excalibur builds, and I also found that I wanted to have Arcane Aegis equipped as well, just to really ensure that I was never going down. So this would be my starting template for an Excalibur build moving forward. We want to make Excalibur's Exalted Blade do as much damage as possible, but as you can see, if you take a look at the stats, it weighs more towards status chance, and that's okay because we're going to be using melee influence, so our electric procs are going to be dealing a lot of damage, but we also want to crit as well because it has a 2.8 times crit damage multiplier with Galvanized Steel equipped. So just go ahead and throw together your standard melee influence build on the Exalted Blade, and then make sure that you're running a blue energy color in the emissive slot there, so you're dealing electric damage with Exalted Blade. So we want to increase the critical chance of Exalted Blade without using Raffle Advance because it's a little bit of a micromanagey playstyle because of its short duration and the fact that you have to constantly be recasting it, right? So what I decided to do was to actually use a stat stick. So I'm using the Praetos here for the bonus movement, and you can see that I have a bunch of Tennokai mods, and more importantly, the Gladiator mods on here because it's giving me bonus critical chance per combo multiplier, and these are all stacking up with one another to make the effect greater. I'm also opting to use Arcane Avenger because what this does, it says on damaged 21% chance for plus 45% critical chance for 12 seconds. Now, there's a problem here. We need to be able to constantly make this proc without actually dying. Now that means we have to run the aura mod called Combat Discipline, and what this is going to do is it's going to damage us every single time that we get a kill. The lower rank the mod, the less damage it's going to deal directly to us. I also thought, because we're damaging ourselves now with Combat Discipline, I might as well just go ahead and throw on Nourish. Now, the reason that we're using Nourish is because it's going to add viral procs to the enemies, making us deal more damage. It's going to give us more energy income by multiplying the energy that we pick up, and it's also going to do a viral explosion every single time that we take damage because of Combat Discipline, so it just made a lot of sense. Now, I find that even with this build, even though I have all of these shield mods on, even though I have Arcane Aegis on, I'm still going down, and it was because of Combat Discipline. We were killing so many enemies in such a short time frame that Combat Discipline was the reason that I was going down. So what I decided to do on my Exalted Blade, instead of running Prime Reach, which is what you would normally run on a build like this, I would instead run Healing Return, which is restoring 11 health per status type, affecting the target, basically meaning I'm always regenerating my health back to full. So the final few mods that I decided to run on Excalibur are Prime Flow for energy, because his fourth ability is a channeled ability, so it's draining my energy over time, so having a big reserve is really good. And also Blind Ridge on here to get as much of a damage buff as possible from Nourish, and then also just from my ability Strength for Exalted Blade, and to bump up the numbers of Radial Javelin paired with Furious Javelin for a big damage increase. Now, the other thing to pay attention to is you don't want to take a hit to your range, because if you have very low range, remember Furious Javelin is based on per enemy hit, so you want to be able to hit a lot of enemies with a single cast of your Radial Javelin ability. So just a few small optimization things to cover before we jump into some gameplay. I'm running 2 Talforged Crimson Archon shards on here. One is ability Strength and one is ability Duration, but I might swap out the Strength one for Duration just for comfort. I've got a Amber Archon shard on here for cast speed. This is just for comfort as well. I've got an Azure shard on here for more energy, and that's going to give me the double crit damage bonus from this Violet Archon shard here. So this is plus 30% melee critical damage, and then when max energy is over 500, the damage boost doubles. So we're getting double the effectiveness from this shard because of this blue shard, because if you're just running Prime Flow, your energy is beneath 500, and that's no good. I'm also using a Helios as my Sentinel, and I'm running a build that looks like this. This is mainly for Vicious Bond, because what this is going to do is this is going to allow our Exalted Blade to armor strip the enemies as we're hitting them with it, so that's really nice. I'm also using the Latron Prime with the Flensing Spikes evolution on the final evolution, and a build that looks like this, making sure to run Primary Dexterity on here, so the combo duration of my Exalted Blade is a lot longer. On my Epitaph, I'm using a Primer build that looks like this, with Secondary Fortifier, so I can build up some Overguard if I'm hitting Xmas or Frax enemies. I'm also using Augur Seeker on here, so whenever I cast, let's say, my first ability, Slash Dash, I'm getting some energy back in the form of shields, helping out with my shield gating. Okay, so here we are in a Conjunction Survival. This is a super high-level mission with Steel Path enemies turned on. What I like to do is cast my Nourish, then cast my Energy Pad, hack this console. Now I'm paying attention to the minimap while standing around this Energy Pad, and now whenever I get between a lot of enemies, cast the Javelin, cast the Exalted Blade, now just hold E, and as long as you're actively killing the enemies with Exalted Blade, like you're just holding E, you're not going to go down. You'll also notice that as you hold E, you're going to get a lot of like frequent Tennokai procs, so that is the knife that appears in the middle of the screen, and if you do your heavy attack, whenever that pops up, you get a free heavy attack that doesn't consume any of your combo, which is really good for your damage output. What you really have to be paying attention to here is the duration of your Nourish and your Javelin. Now, the dumb thing is the Javelin damage buff, the duration of that is actually up beside all the buffs in the top right hand corner, beside, you know, your health and your shields and stuff like that. Its duration is 18 seconds, so it's quite short. Yours is down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's got a 28-second duration, so you can kind of figure out for yourself why I'm considering dropping the other red shard for a duration red shard instead of ability strength. But you can see that I'm maintaining a 12 times combo I've got these frequent Tennokai procs popping up whenever I'm actually landing hits on the enemies. Our health is basically not budging at all because we've got healing return on, and we're constantly applying, you know, different status procs to the enemies. Speaking of priming the enemies, if you want to deal more damage to them, just go ahead, whip out your Epitaph Prime and start priming them with the primer build that you've got on, and you'll deal a ton more damage that way. But really, the biggest downside to the build is the duration of Nourish and Javelin. You get such a damage boost from having both of those active. You've seen like a 2.2 million orange crit there. You are consistently critting, so you're getting the bonus crit damage, all that good stuff. And I'm super confident that you'll be able to take this build into a level cap run. Even Slash Dash deals like 500,000 damage per Slash Dash cast. And it also taxes the effect of Influence on as well, because it's just taken from your Exalted Blade, right? So you've basically got like an Exalted Blade in the pocket as well, which is giving you that invulnerability and also giving you a little bit of shield regen as well. So I would definitely recommend swapping that second shard for duration just to make the build feel a little bit more comfortable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap out that other shard from ability strength to ability duration, and I'm going to attach 5 minutes of gameplay past the 20-minute mark here in a conjunction survival, just so you guys can see how the build plays out, you know, in super high level content and with that extra shard. There's going to be no commentary, so that's going to be the end of the video from me. Thank you guys for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe for more Warframe content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.